There's not a supplement out there, not one, that's going to magically heal your bloating or your stomach discomfort. If you have been tempted to reach for a probiotic or a bloating quick fix, please pause. To be honest, your gut is probably not asking for a capsule. It's just wanting a little bit of rest and rhythm and real food. We're going to cover all of this throughout the video. But I want you to know that you are not what you eat. You are what you digest and what you absorb. You can eat clean all day long, all you want to, but if your digestive fire is weak, you're probably malnourished. I hate to put it like that. Quick disclaimer, this is not medical advice or a replacement for personalized support from a licensed healthcare professional or a certified practitioner like myself. That said, you can absolutely start to optimize your health journey before a diagnosis ever happens by fueling yourself intentionally. Welcome to my main character maintenance series. I'm Jordan Ray, and what I bring to the table is support for women who are tired of starting over every single Monday. For women who want to improve their gut and metabolic health while leaning into anti-inflammatory practices, I am here for that. This series is produced and thus sponsored by my practice, Fine Diet. You can learn more at myfinediet.com or click that link in the description. Also, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything from the main character maintenance series over the next few weeks. In last week's video, I talked about how to know if your breakfast is actually healthy and how to balance it out if needed. Today, we are talking about digestive and gut health. You might be struggling with no matter what I eat, I still feel bloated or off, a little gassy, or I never go to the bathroom, or I go too much. You might have curiosities around how does food impact my digestion for real? And is it like my gut or my hormones or both? What's going on? I'll share my personal insights and philosophies and some formal education. And my goal for you throughout this video and this series is to literally take some practical steps to move forward that you can implement in your nutrition and lifestyle day to day, like as early as tomorrow. For us women especially, we are more likely to be prescribed an antidepressant or a birth control pill rather than get support for our gastrointestinal system. It's kind of crazy. I have a whole story about this. Also, cultural diets sometimes conflict with gut healing advice. So you think about sugar, gluten, dairy, carb-heavy comfort meals. That's going against all things gut health, honestly. And generational habits have really put us in this place of unawareness when it comes to nutrition and gut health, all resulting in us normalizing dysfunction. And it's honestly like, no, this stuff is not normal. It's become normal, but it's really not normal. So this isn't about removing everything that you love. This is more about information and finding rhythms that work for you, that support you, that make you feel like you. Why am I qualified to even talk to you about this? So if you were new here, I was recently diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. It is an irritable bowel disease about, maybe almost 2 years ago now, which is crazy. I also have degrees in both biology and psychology. So when all of this started to happen a couple years ago, it just completely changed my life. And then a year ago, I decided to get back into school to become a nutritional therapy practitioner through the Nutritional Therapy Association, kind of a mouthful. So I've been studying root cause, bioindividuality, and a nutrition first approach while also being able to support people with supplementation and lifestyle changes. I know from experience how frustrating it is for your body to be speaking some sort of language and you don't know what's going on. I'm here to translate what your gut is trying to tell you and help you respond with something a little bit better than some herbal tea, even though that sometimes will do the trick. Did you know that 70 to 80% of the immune system lives in the gut? Like, our gut microbiome is responsible for so much. It's not just a food tube. It's really a communication center, and it is also heavily communicating with our brain. Like 90 to 95% of our serotonin is produced in the gut. So think mental health. Our gut is also going to help us clear out excess hormones. So think estrogen dominance. It's going to impact our skin, like from the inside out is literally a thing, and nutrient absorption. It's responsible for that and how we're going to get energy from the food we eat to our cells throughout our body. And so if any of that is kind of compromised and not working as it could be or as we want it to be, we could then end up with fatigue, moodiness, dysbiosis, which let's talk about that, because gut dysbiosis, this leads to immune activation, and our immune system is like always on. When that's happening, our immune system is sending antibodies places, and it's thinking that it's helping us by sending antibodies certain places. This causes inflammation, which inflammation is a protective mechanism. However, when it happens chronically and it's low-grade inflammation and it's systemic, it starts to negatively impact us over time. That's when we feel the dominoes, like the brain fog, we see the acne, We have the stomach discomfort. We recognize food sensitivities or intolerances that we've never had before. We have unbearable periods, the fatigue, like the unexplained fatigue out of nowhere, the anxiety, all of these things I have personally dealt with. And it was through diet, not anything that any of my doctors shared with me, that helped me heal through my own just, okay, I am not eating this. I'm going to eat more of this. I'm going to eat less processed foods, so on and so forth. Funny story. This is not a funny story. I remember when I was diagnosed and I had no idea like what was going on. Now that I've done like all of this research, I'm pretty convinced that my doctor knew that I had a disposition to developing ulcerative colitis, and she didn't tell me. Like she put me on a medication that was going to kind of cover some symptoms, obviously, but she never led me to believe, or she never educated me that this could progress into something that could become an autoimmune condition. And so like another year went by. I've been seeing her for years at this point. Another year went by. I got really sick, and I go in, I do a colonoscopy or whatever. And y'all, when I tell you I was sicker than I've ever been, like I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. And if you are anyhow familiar with like Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, it's a lot. Like I lost 20 pounds and couldn't walk for like 2 weeks and just trying to recover. So I say all that to say, I wake up after the anesthesia, after the procedure, and she looks me straight in the face and is like, you can go home and rest and eat whatever you want. And I'm like, huh? Eat whatever I want? My insides feel like they're falling out. Like, why would I just go eat whatever I want? And from that point, I think I really started to question conventional medicine and the doctors and like the role that they play. There's a time and a place for all of these things, but I was like, I have to be responsible from now on for how I feel day to day. I cannot wait until something gets so bad and I need to go to the hospital to have a procedure done. So I decided then and there that I would clean up my diet, even though, y'all, I thought I had a clean diet. I thought I was doing all the things. I was going to the gym. I was, going for walks. I was pretty active, drinking water and all, eating salmon and vegetables, but it still wasn't enough with, the stress that I was exposed to and the environment that I was in and all of these other things that were playing a role in me developing an autoimmune condition, which is unfortunate, but we're here now. I would put it like this. Our gut is one of the first places that dysfunction shows up, but it's the last place that we consider looking. It's the last place we consider fixing. So let me run it back. Remember, earlier in the video, I said, you're not what you eat, but you are what you digest and absorb. And that if your digestive fire is weak, then you're probably malnourished. So I said that at the top of the video. And I want to elaborate a little bit more about what digestive fire is. So our digestion starts when we see food, actually. Like that's when the process starts. We're like, oh, we see some good food, like we're about to eat. And our brain starts to tell our stomach, all right, let's get ready to produce some hydrochloric acid and we're going to get ready. Like there's food that's incoming. So cool. We put our food on a plate and we're now eating. We have enzymes in our mouth that are going to start to digest the food and break down the carbohydrates. Once we get down into the esophagus, right, we have this whole wave-like motion that is involuntarily moving food down our esophagus into our stomach. So that's where the stomach acid comes in. And we want our stomach to know that there is food coming in so it can raise the acidity and start to break down that food even more before it moves it into the small intestines. And so in the small intestines is where more food starts to get absorbed. But if it wasn't broken down properly in the stomach, and if it wasn't chewed properly in the mouth, like chew your food long enough, and give your time, your body some time to like realize, okay, we really do have food coming in. Everybody get ready, everybody line up. So I say all that to say, once we get into the small intestines is where we start to actually absorb whatever we can. And it's important that all of those things are working in tandem. So again, like from the time you see food to the time that it's in your mouth, on your tongue, salivary glands, enzymes in your mouth that are starting to break down the carbs. Once it goes into your stomach, now we're starting to separate proteins, carbs, fats. Okay, cool. Small intestines, get ready to do your job. So we have this as NTPs, and that's the title that I'll have when I graduate in a few weeks. We want to really investigate this north to south process is what we call it. So are you even chewing your food enough? Is your stomach maybe a little bit low acid? How can we support that? And that way we're not just rushing to the problem at the end of the the digestive tract, which would be your elimination and what your poop looks like in a toilet, that we'll get to in just a second. But we're starting up at the top and kind of asking those questions in a north to south process. Let me know if that makes sense, because it makes sense to me because I studied it. But now that I'm trying to articulate it, I would like to know that it makes sense to you. So let's talk about poop. And I can't believe that I am talking about poop on YouTube. Like thought I would never see the day, but it really changed my life when I understood what a good bowel movement looks like, what it feels like, how often it should happen. So we should ideally be going to the restroom at least every 24 to 36 hours at the max. If you're going 2 to 3 times a day, that's okay. If you're only going 2 to 3 times a week, we definitely want to chat about that. So there's something called the Bristol stool chart that basically puts poop on a scale from 1 to 7, 1 being very constipated. You can actually go pull this up on Google or whatnot and look at it so you can start to be the judge of your own bowel movements and like, okay, where am I at today? So 1 is going to be very constipated. A 3, 4 is a little bit more of a normal bowel movement. Like we want to see 3s and 4s, and a 7 is going to be pretty runny and diarrhea-like. So if you're on either side of that scale, there's things that you can do to help you. Maybe you need more water. When you're constipated, sometimes it's as simple as I'm not drinking enough water. Am I drinking half of my body weight in ounces of water per day? Like, let's just start there. Very simple. Doesn't cost like any money basically. And maybe that'll help relieve some of the constipation. If you're more on the 7 side of the scale and are experiencing a bit looser stools, maybe some diarrhea, like really, really persistent diarrhea, definitely want to see a doctor about that and kind of get that taken care of ASAP. Trust me, I know. And if it's something where, okay, my stools are a little bit looser than normal, let's look at the diet. Are you getting enough fiber in? The fiber adds bulk to your stool and allows it to kind of form inside of the large intestines and the colon before we're pushing it out. Okay, so giving you a little bit of a visual without completely giving you a visual. And also sometimes diarrhea or constipation can point to sluggish digestion, meaning things are moving a little bit slower than they need to in the digestive system, or things are moving too fast. Usually diarrhea is moving really fast. There's no time for anything to form. And then constipation is when it's moving slow because it's been in there too long. So there's pros and cons to both. Diarrhea is more like we're moving so fast down the digestive tract that our body is not getting any time to absorb the food. Remember, we are what we digest and absorb. And if we're constipated, it's like the food is sitting in there too long, and that can lead to some bacterial overgrowth. And I do want to note that it is common for you to be a bit constipated a few days before your cycle while you're in luteal because of the flux in hormones and how that affects your water retention. So definitely stay tuned. We'll talk more about that in video 7 when we discuss some cycle syncing. Okay, without fear mongering, because that is not what we do. This is information. With information, you can make more educated decisions and have high level conversations about what you're going through. So there's 4 things that I want to share with you about that could be possible conditions within your gut that you may have also seen around the internet or know about yourself. And maybe there is something that you are moving through and navigating through yourself. So the first thing is SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. This is when bacteria is growing where it shouldn't in the small intestines, and this could lead to malabsorption, right? We talked like absorption is really big. We want to be able to actually absorb the good foods that we're eating. It can lead to some pain and discomfort as well. So SIBO is a thing that you could get tested for. It's actually a breath test, very non-invasive. I believe you would have to order that through a doctor, maybe like a gastrointestinal specialist. I'm not able just yet to order those types of tests for my clients, but one day I will be. Okay, IBS is irritable bowel syndrome. And this is sort of a catch-all for like a lot of symptoms that someone may be experiencing with upset stomach after eating certain foods or upset stomach after eating almost every meal. There's not necessarily a clear pathology for IBS. It is really just a cluster of this is what's happening, and we're not able to really pinpoint a specific diagnosis for this person. It's a cluster of symptoms. IBD, on the other hand, which is what I navigate, is irritable bowel disease. And it is actually something that you can see with the procedure, with the microscope, being able to test and do biopsies on polyps in the colon and different things like that, and levels of inflammation throughout the intestines that determine whether or not someone would have a Crohn's or ulcerative colitis situation. Okay, and then last but not least, really quickly, is leaky gut. This is a situation where the gut lining has become really hyperpermeable, and foods and like toxins can pass outside of the gut, like into the bloodstream that actually shouldn't be there. And a lot of us are actually dealing with this and we don't know because of our diets being highly processed foods. And it's put a strain on our gut. It has triggered that low grade inflammation that I spoke about earlier in the video, and our gut lining is compromised. And so foods and toxins that don't need to be in the bloodstream are leaking out. And then our immune system is like, hold up, who this guy? I need to deal with him. And it's causing like this immune response that's not necessary. But we could certainly work to heal that with pulling back on processed foods, eating much more whole foods, putting those things into our diet, and possibly also some supplementation. I say all that to say, these aren't just acronyms. These are things that show patterns of dysfunction and can help us make better decisions going forward. I would also say that while a diagnosis is important, and I hope that most, if not all of you watching this video don't have a crazy diagnosis, but while that's important, also what you do day to day, it adds up. Like meal to meal, it adds up. I always say like you're only as good as your last meal, because we just want to do as good as we can every time we eat. Okay, what can you do today to start to support your healthy gut? Good question. I've said this already about 2 or 3 times, but limit processed foods. I don't know how else to say it, but there's so many things going on in all of the restaurants and the fast food spots and that we are just can't control. They're out of our control. So it really has started to freak me out personally when I go to a restaurant and I'm like, I really don't know what they're putting in this food. And I'm just trusting the restaurant. I don't even know these people. I don't know the staff. It's kind of crazy. I'm not going to lie. And then we could go over to somebody's house and be a little bit more about like, what so-and-so put in there. I'm like, well, this is your family. Like you go to a restaurant all the time and you don't ask what they put in the food, and they're not using quality ingredients. Unless you go to a health conscious restaurant, they're using all sorts of shit. So eat things that you can read. Like it could be literally that simple. And I know it sounds insane, but eat things that when you look at the ingredient label, you can pronounce the words. Easy. Artificial sweeteners, added sugars, gums, seed oils. There's so many things that can be inflammatory triggers. And if we are little by little just eating things here and there throughout the day, throughout the week, then throughout the month, think about that. That adds up after year after year after year. And then in my case, something like that, along with several other factors that came together, created the perfect storm for an autoimmune condition. Those things are known gut disruptors and should be completely avoided. You can find these in healthy bars and healthy protein shakes, ready to go protein shakes. I put so much content on like TikTok and sometimes like my stories and things like that on Instagram. Like these are ingredients to avoid, and also putting things together, especially for sugar, in the Dear Sugar program on the Fine Diet platform. But known gut disruptors, absolutely not. These are the artificial sweeteners, even sugar alcohols, the added sugars, gums, and seed oils. We not eating those no more. Also, the common triggers that are so hard to give up besides sugar are gluten and dairy, especially if you are on the autoimmune spectrum. Maybe you already have something going on. I'm reading about this a lot in the Autoimmune Solution by Dr. Amy Myers. She's a functional medicine doctor. She also has a supplement line that I really like. And she talks a lot about the autoimmune spectrum. And if you're on the spectrum, you don't quite have a diagnosis, but there's something going on. You may be working with a doctor to pinpoint some things. Cut gluten out. Sugar and gluten gotta go. If you're not lactose intolerant, but you might have a dairy sensitivity, I would be like, let me try to pull back on dairy. Not for like a few days, not for like maybe even a week. I'm like, go for a month trying to pull back on dairy or gluten and/or sugar. Doing all at once is insane, but I've done it before and I still do it. Actually, now I would rather have a little bit of sugar here and there, not on a daily basis necessarily, but I'd rather do that instead of gluten and dairy on a daily basis. And that is saying a lot. Something else you can do is to rethink your latte. Okay, you get an espresso latte, maybe a matcha latte. I'm not necessarily talking about the coffee or the caffeine source. That's not what I'm arguing for right now. I'm talking about what you add to the latte. I really got big beef with Starbucks in particular. And if you are a Starbucks customer, y'all, first of all, there's better coffee because there's better coffee shops that actually have better coffee beans, but Starbucks coffee is just not really that good anyways. But you're adding in milk, almond milk or oat milk that has the added seed oils in them that I just mentioned, the sweeteners that I just mentioned, they're adding up every day. You go get a latte, or you might have 1 or 2 lattes a day. That 8 ounces of oat milk or almond milk, I want you to look at the back of the label of the barista milks that they're using and just sit there for a second and think about, what are these ingredients? Can I pronounce these things? What is maltodextrin? Do you know what maltodextrin is? Do you know what cellulose gum is? Do you know how that metabolizes or not in your body once you drink it? Your body still has to deal with, what is this substance? Can we use this? And that's putting extra stress on your digestive system and on your gut health. You can also choose to eat your food slower, to chew slower, and to make sure that you're eating in a parasympathetic state, that you are not in a state of stress, you are not on the go, you're not eating while walking, you're not trying to do 100 million things while you have lunch. Try to just carve out 10 minutes where you can sit down and not really be scrolling on your phone all the time. I'm so guilty of that all the time, or even eating lunch at my desk. But I try to make sure that I'm chewing my food 20 times. They say try to chew your food 30 times. I think that that's really tough. But I find, okay, I can do about 18 to 20 chews for my food to make sure that it's getting into a mush-like consistency before I swallow it. It's going to make it easier on my organs to literally deal with it later. That's what our teeth are for. So when you're rushing, when you're eating, that leads to undigested food, and that results later on in like bloating, irritation, stomach pain, so on and so forth. Some simple swaps that you could consider are cooked veggies over raw veggies. I know that a good salad is so good, but depending on the lettuce and all the other vegetables that are on top of that salad, like raw vegetables can actually be a bit more harmful, a little bit more rough on the digestive system than something that's cooked and it's a bit warmer and soft when you eat it. So think about that. If you do have some digestive discomfort, or you're feeling like some dysbiosis, or you do have a bit of irritation along your digestive tract, it doesn't matter where it is. Try to maybe cut back on like the raw vegetables so much and eat those veggies cooked for a week or two and see if that alleviates some of the symptoms that you have. Something that I love is herbal tea, like a good ginger tea, just something simple, or just lemon water, like just straight up lemon water, some warm lemon water could really help before and after meals. Something that you just sip on throughout the day. It's keeping that digestive fire going. And that way, when you do get ready to eat in 10 or 15 minutes, maybe, you've been sipping on some warm tea or something before lunch, and you're like, okay, I'm going to heat my lunch up in 10 minutes or so, or make me some dinner. And that way your digestive system is kind of getting going while it's being soothed and it's preparing for that food, that meal that you're about to eat. Let me know if that makes sense. You can also add fermented food into your diet. This is simple, like sauerkraut, or even some like pickled onions, like pickled red onions. I love those. And you could top that, some of your bowls and things like that with fermented foods. I would start slow with fermented foods because they could actually cause a little bit of like gas if you go overboard too soon, too fast, too soon with too much. But those are going to help feed your good bacteria in the gut. And we want those fermented foods. They got the good prebiotics in them. Okay, just mentioned prebiotics, but let me mention a probiotic. So a probiotic is the good bacteria that lives in our gut. The prebiotics are the actual fibers that those good bacteria eat. So if you've been considering ordering a probiotic, the one I take is seed. I've been taking seed for a couple years now and have had really good experience with it. When I get off track and I don't take my seed for a week or two, I notice a difference in my digestion and like my regularity for sure. What I would say about supplementation, especially when it comes to probiotics, is don't just order from anywhere. Don't just order anything from anybody because you saw somebody on the internet say that they liked this probiotic. I would make sure that you are finding a person that could be me. That's what I'm here for. That's why I'm spending hours making this video. You could find a person like me that you could really lean on and either just reach out to them. You could either work with them or book a session. That's, all of that information is on my website. And I'm not trying to like oversell that, but my point is to find someone that you can trust, that you're like, okay, they have the education. They're going above and beyond to source and vet certain supplement companies, because the supplement industry really isn't that regulated right now. It's not regulated like, even though it's under the FDA, it's not regulated like foods and drugs. It's very much like anybody who wanted to put anything in a capsule could do that and then package it and put it on Amazon. It's like there's no like barrier to entry necessarily. So definitely vet your probiotic, the brand, go on their website, read and dig and understand what are the strands in that probiotic, how many colony forming units. That's the measurement of a probiotic strand. So you'll see like large numbers, like 5 billion strands of lactobacillus or bifidobacterium. There's a lot of different names, but those are like the two most popular ones that you'll see in almost all probiotics for the gut is bifidobacterium and lactobacillus. But see how many colony forming units are in there. Just really understand even maybe what the capsule is made out of. Do you need something that's a vegan capsule? Does the capsule even allow the probiotics to get to your intestines? Because if the capsule breaks and isn't engineered in a way that can make it past the stomach acid in your stomach that we talked about earlier, it's not ever going to get to your gut where the probiotics need to actually go. So there's just a lot of layers there, and their supplement companies aren't going to tell you that, yeah, our capsule, 50% chance of it making it past your stomach acid, depending on the acidity of your stomach. And they just, they want to put you on subscription and send you the probiotic. And then at that point, you're just taking a pill and it's like a placebo. So let me know if that makes sense and if that helps you understand why to pause and do your own research or find someone that you trust that can help you on that supplementation decision, because it's so important. Like, why would we spend $50 on, let's say, seed probiotic and not know if this is even going to be effective? All in all, your gut, though, is probably not just asking for a capsule, some sort of probiotic. It is asking for that rhythm, that rest, that real food, those whole foods that we talked about, and less processed foods. All right, in next week's video, we'll uncover why you are underfed and overstimulated. Like, what's up with that? So think cortisol and caffeine on an empty stomach, what's going on? And if you are eating food to nourish, or if you're eating food to numb, and why your mood swings aren't emotional. Maybe it's just nutritional. All right, if this has helped you learn about digestion and gut health, please hit that subscribe button and leave some love in the comments. I will see you next week.